The bass thumped through the floorboards, vibrating up my legs as I balanced the tray of drinks. 3 whiskeys neat, 2 vodka sodas, and something blue in a martini glass that cost more than I'd make in tips tonight. The air was thick alone, perfume, cigarette smoke, and desperation, all mingling into the distinct scent of Obsidian, the most exclusive intelligence officers' club in the city. Table 7. Don't spill, Marco barked as he passed, his shoulder brushing mine roughly. I steadied the tray against my hip, ignoring the ache in my feet from the mandatory 6-inch heels we cocktail waitresses had to wear. 6 hours into my shift, and I still had 2 more to go. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The hospital again. I couldn't answer now. Mom would understand. She always understood, even when she shouldn't have to. I moved between tables, past men in tailored suits who never looked at my face, and women draped in diamonds who never saw me at all. Obsidian's clientele lived in a different world than mine, one where medical bills didn't pile up on kitchen tables, and where mothers didn't need experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. Your drinks, gentlemen, I said, setting each glass down carefully on the black marble tabletop. The men at table 7 were regulars middle-aged, with heavy watches and heavier wallets. They tipped well when they were winning at the private poker games upstairs, poorly when they weren't. Thank you, doll, one of them said, sliding a 50 across the table without looking up from his phone. Keep the change. I slipped the bill into my apron pocket, murmuring thanks to a man who'd already forgotten I existed. As I turned to leave, the air in the club shifted. I felt it before I saw anything. A collective intake of breath, conversations dropping to murmurs, the DJ seamlessly transitioning to a different track. The crowd parted like dark water, and 3 men moved through the space that opened for them. 2 were clearly security broad-shouldered in black suits with telltale earpieces and expressionless faces that scanned the room continuously. But it was the man between them who caused the atmosphere to change. He wasn't exceptionally tall, but he moved as if the world bent around him rather than the other way around. Dark hair cut close at the sides but longer on top, jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His suit was clearly bespoke, the kind of subtle wealth that didn't need to announce itself. I'd worked at Obsidian for 7 months and had never seen him before, but I knew immediately who he was. Everyone did. Dante Russo. Not just the owner of the club, he was the head of the city's most powerful intelligence network. The kind of man people spoke about in whispers when they spoke at all. A spy master who controlled information like others controlled currency. I turned away quickly, heading back to the bar. Survival instinct, maybe. Like not staring directly at a predator in the wild. Adriana Elena hissed. Another waitress grabbing my arm as I reached the service bar. Do you see who just walked in? That's him. That's Rousseau. I know, I said, pulling my arm free. Can you cover section 3 for a minute? I need to check my phone. Are you crazy? Not with him here. Tony will fire you on the spot. It's the hospital, I said, and her face softened immediately. 2 minutes. I'll cover, but hurry. I slipped through the door marked staff only, down the narrow hallway to the locker room, With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and listened to the voicemail. Miss Parker, this is Dr. Reeves. Your mother's latest test results have come back, and I'd like to discuss them with you. Please call my office to schedule an appointment tomorrow. It's important that we talk soon. The careful neutrality in his voice told me everything I needed to know. The treatment wasn't working. The experimental protocol we'd fought so hard to get her into, the one I'd taken this job to pay for, wasn't working. I leaned against the lockers, the cold metal pressing through my thin uniform, and allowed myself 10 seconds of despair, 10 seconds to feel the weight crushing my chest. 1, 2, 3. By 8, I was wiping away tears. By 10, I was straightening my uniform, checking my makeup in the small mirror inside my locker. I stepped back into the hallway and nearly collided with a solid wall of black soot. One of the security men who had accompanied Rousseau stood directly in my path, his face impassive as he looked down at me. "Excuse me," I said, trying to step around him. He didn't move. "Miss Parker." My blood went cold. How did he know my name? "Yes, Mr. Rousseau would like a word, not a request. I need to get back to work. This is work." His tone left no room for argument. "Follow me." He turned and walked down the hallway, past the main floor entrance toward the private elevator that led to the office's upstairs areas, where regular staff like me never went. I followed, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. The elevator opened silently, and he motioned for me to enter. As the doors closed us in together, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the polished metal. Pale face, wide eyes. I looked exactly how I felt, terrified. "Am I in trouble?" I finally asked as we ascended. The security man didn't look at me. "Mr. Russo doesn't waste time on trouble." That wasn't reassuring. The elevator opened directly into a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The space was minimalist black leather furniture, a massive desk, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than my mother's medical bills. Dante Russo stood with his back to us, looking out at the city lights, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. The security man gave me a slight push forward, then retreated, leaving us alone as the elevator doors whispered shut. For several long seconds, Russo didn't turn or speak. I stood frozen, afraid to move or make a sound. When he finally turned to face me, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Adriana Parker," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he was tasting it. 24 years old. English literature major who dropped out in your final year when your mother got sick, working 3 jobs to pay for her treatment, living in that rundown apartment building on Westfield Avenue, the one with the broken security door, and the super who never fixes the heating. Each word felt like a physical touch, invasive and intimate. He knew everything about me. Why did he know everything about me? How do I make it my business to know who works for me? He said, setting his glass down and moving closer, especially when they catch my attention. He circled me slowly, like a shark circling prey. I kept my eyes fixed ahead, afraid to follow his movement. And you, Miss Parker, have caught my attention. I don't understand, I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. He came to stand in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, nothing like the overpowering scents the men downstairs bathed in. 7 months you've worked here, never late, never complained, taking every extra shift offered, fending off advances from clients with a smile that never quite reaches your eyes. My face burned. He'd been watching me. All this time, he'd been watching me. I need this job, Mr. Russo. Dante, he corrected softly. And yes, you do, for your mother's treatments, the ones that aren't working. I flinched as if he'd struck me. How could he possibly know about the voicemail I'd just received? It's written all over your face, he said, answering my unspoken question. You received bad news tonight. I said nothing, blinking rapidly to hold back tears. I have a proposition for you, Adriana. There was something in his voice, a softness that hadn't been there before. When I finally dared to look up, the intensity in his dark eyes made me shiver. I don't. I swallowed hard. Whatever you're suggesting, don't insult me. His voice hardened instantly. If I wanted that kind of arrangement, there are plenty of women downstairs who would happily oblige. My cheeks burned with shame. My apologies, I whispered. His expression softened again, almost imperceptibly. I'm offering you a job. A different position as my personal assistant. I don't understand. Double your current salary, full benefits, and he paused, studying my reaction. Access to the best medical care for your mother, the kind not available to the general public. My heart stuttered. Why would you do that for me? Let's say I see potential in you. He moved back to his desk, picking up a folder. Everything is outlined here. Take it home, read it. If you accept, be at this address tomorrow morning at 9. He held out the folder, and when I reached for it, his fingers brushed against mine. An electric current seemed to pass between us, and I jerked my hand back, clutching the folder to my chest. I haven't agreed to anything, I said, finding a small spark of defiance. Something flashed in his eyes, surprised perhaps, and something else, something warmer. No, he agreed. You haven't, but you will. The certainty in his voice should have angered me. Instead, it sent a different kind of shiver down my spine. You can go, he said, turning away, dismissing me. But as I turned toward the elevator, he spoke again. Adriana. I paused, not turning back. Yes, don't make me wait too long for your answer. I'm not a patient man. The elevator doors opened as if on cue. I stepped inside, clutching the folder like a lifeline. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Dante Russo. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher, possession, perhaps, or hunger. It wasn't until I was back downstairs, hiding in a bathroom stall with shaking hands, that I opened the folder. Inside was a contract, a business card with an address, and a check made out to my mother's hospital, for an amount that made my vision blur. The check was already signed. He knew I had no choice. I didn't finish my shift that night. I slipped out the back door, still in my uniform, and took the bus home in a daze. The folder clutched to my chest felt impossibly heavy, as if it contained not just papers, but my entire future. What I didn't know then couldn't have known was that Dante Russo had been watching me for months. That the job offer wasn't spontaneous, but meticulously planned. That I had already been chosen long before I ever set foot in his office. And that by walking into that elevator tomorrow morning, I would be stepping into a world I didn't yet understand, a world of secrets, intelligence networks, and a man who controlled information like others controlled empires. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind racing between hope and suspicion. By dawn, I'd convinced myself a dozen times to take the offer, and a dozen more to run as far from Dante Russo as possible. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's face, gaunt and pale against hospital sheets, still smiling bravely for my benefit. Morning light filtered through my thin curtains as I stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing my appearance. I'd chosen my most professional outfit, a navy pencil skirt and white blouse I'd worn to college interviews years ago. The clothes felt like a costume, an attempt to look like someone who belonged in Dante Russo's world. The address on the card led me to a sleek high-rise in the financial district, the kind of building where you needed a keycard just to enter the lobby. I stood outside, clutching my worn handbag, gathering courage. "Miss Parker." I startled at the voice behind me. The same security man from last night materialized at my shoulder, his expression unchanged. "Good morning," I managed. He didn't respond, merely held the door open. Inside, he guided me to a private elevator, different from the one at the club, but equally intimidating. This one required a fingerprint scan, which he provided without comment. "Mr. Russo is expecting you," he finally said as the doors closed. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment so vast it took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased panoramic views of the city, the morning sun glinting off glass and steel. The space was minimalist but luxurious: Italian leather, marble surfaces, and art that probably belonged in museums. "You're punctual, I appreciate that." Dante Russo's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him watching me with those same intense eyes that had haunted my dreams last night. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like armor, every bit the intelligence operative in daylight as he'd been in the club's shadows. "I said 9, I replied, aiming for confident but hearing the tremor in my voice. "Most people arrive early when they're nervous." He gestured toward a dining table where breakfast was laid out. "Have you eaten?" I shook my head, suddenly aware of the emptiness in my stomach. I'd been too anxious to eat. "Sit," he commanded softly, not a request. I obeyed, perching on the edge of a chair as he took the seat opposite. A woman appeared silently, not security, but staff of some kind, and poured coffee into delicate china cups before disappearing again. I assume you've read the contract, Dante said, stirring his coffee without looking at it. Yes, I'd read it a dozen times, searching for hidden clauses or traps. It's generous. Do you have questions? I had hundreds, but one burned brighter than the rest. Why me? His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. Direct good. He set his spoon down precisely beside his cup. You're intelligent, observant, and discreet. You handled difficult situations with grace, and you have motivation beyond money. My mother, yes. His eyes never left mine. Those who work for money alone can be bought. Those who work for something more valuable cannot. And what exactly would I be doing as your personal assistant? The title felt loaded, dangerous. Whatever I require, at my expression, he added. Administrative duties. Scheduling, correspondence, accompanying me to meetings and events, being an extension of my will when I'm not present. I don't have experience with any of that. You'll learn. I took a sip of coffee to hide my uncertainty. It was the most delicious coffee I'd ever tasted, and my mother's treatment. I've already arranged for her transfer to a private facility. Dr. Alessandro Marino is expecting her this afternoon. He specializes in cases like your mother's. His success rate is impressive. My hand trembled, coffee nearly spilling. You did this before I even accepted. As I said last night, I knew you would accept. His certainty should have offended me. Instead, it sent that same strange shiver down my spine. There's a car waiting to take you to the hospital now, he continued. You can sign the paperwork for your mother's transfer, collect her things, explain the situation. The car will then bring you both to the new facility. And then you come back here. Your employment begins today. I set my cup down carefully. Mr. Russo Dante, he corrected again. Dante, I conceded, the name feeling intimate on my tongue. This is all happening very quickly. I don't waste time. Adriana, not mine and not yours. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with a fluid motion, especially not when your mother's health is deteriorating by the day. The urgency in his voice matched the fear in my heart. How did he know so much? Why did he care? I don't understand why you're doing this, I whispered. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Not all actions require immediate understanding. Sometimes you must simply accept the gift being offered. Gift, as if this wasn't a transaction with terms I couldn't yet see. The car is waiting, he said, stepping back. Go to your mother. I'll expect you back by 4. And just like that, I was dismissed. The same security man appeared to escort me down. In the sleek black car with tinted windows, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The hospital corridors felt different today. The same antiseptic smell, the same fluorescent lighting, but I moved through them with new purpose. When I reached my mother's room, she was awake, thumbing through a dog-eared paperback, the same one she'd been reading for weeks, unable to focus long enough to finish it. Adi, she said, her face lighting up. The nickname from my childhood never failed to warm my heart. You're early today. I sat on the edge of her bed, taking her frail hand in mine. Mom, there's been a change in your treatment plan. I told her a version of the truth that through connections at work, I'd secured her a place at an exclusive treatment facility with a specialist in her condition. I left out the parts about Dante Russo, about the deal I'd made. Honey, we can't afford that, she said immediately, her brow creasing with worry. Always worrying about me, even now. It's covered, I assured her. Everything's covered. How? Her eyes so like mine searched my face with a mother's intuition that time and illness hadn't dulled. I got a new job, a better one, with benefits. It wasn't a lie. Exactly, her smile was tentative. That's wonderful, but it sounds too good to be true. It was, I knew it was, but I smiled back anyway. Sometimes we get lucky. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork, packing her few belongings, and waiting for discharge approvals. The hospital staff seemed puzzled by the sudden transfer, but offered no resistance once they saw the authorization forms, each bearing an embossed logo I didn't recognize but which opened doors with remarkable efficiency. The facility we arrived at bore little resemblance to a hospital. Nestled on manicured grounds outside the city, it looked more like a luxury spa, natural stone and glass, with fountains and gardens visible from the circular drive where our car stopped. A team greeted us immediately, a doctor, in a tailored suit rather than scrubs, nurses who looked like concierges, assistants who took charge of everything with practiced efficiency. My mother gripped my hand tightly as they wheeled her inside, her eyes wide with disbelief. Miss Parker, the doctor. Moreno himself addressed me after my mother had been settled into a suite that looked more like a five-star hotel room than a hospital. May I have a word? In a private consultation room, he explained my mother's new treatment protocol in detail. Cutting-edge therapies, some experimental, some not yet available to the general public. Hope bloomed in my chest for the first time in months. Mr. Russo has given explicit instructions regarding your mother's care. Dr. Moreno said, studying me with curious eyes. She is to receive the absolute best we can provide, without limitation. Thank you, I said, unsure what else to say. He must think very highly of you, she observed neutrally. I had no answer for that. When it was time to leave, my mother clung to me with surprising strength. You'll come back soon, she asked. As often as I can, I promised, kissing her cheek. This is a good thing, Mom. The best doctors, the best care. I'm more concerned about you, she said softly, her eyes knowing. What exactly is this new job, Adriana? Nothing to worry about, I lied, forcing a smile. Just administrative work. Boring stuff. She didn't believe me, I could tell, but she let it go. Be careful, sweetheart. Nothing in this world comes without a price. The truth of her words haunted me on the drive back to the city. What price would Dante Russo eventually demand? The car delivered me back to the high-rise at exactly 3:45. The security man whose name I still didn't know escorted me up to the penthouse. This time, Dante wasn't alone. Three men in suits were seated in the living area, tumblers of dark liquor in hand despite the early hour. They fell silent when I entered, all eyes turning to assess me with open curiosity. Gentlemen, Dante said, rising smoothly. My new assistant, Adriana Parker. The way he said my name sent a ripple of awareness through me, the one from the club. One of the men asked with a smirk, older, with silver at his temples and an expensive watch glinting at his wrist. Adriana, these are my associates, Dante continued, ignoring the question. Mr. Vega, Mr. Caruso, and Mr. Leon. I nodded politely, uncomfortable under their scrutiny. A pretty addition to your staff, Leon said in heavily accented English, raising his glass in my direction. Though perhaps a distraction. Adriana, wait for me in my office, Dante said, his tone light but his eyes hardening. Through those doors, I moved quickly, relieved to escape. Behind me, I heard Dante's voice drop to a register that raised goosebumps along my arms. She is not a topic for discussion. The office was as imposing as the rest of the penthouse, masculine and minimalist, with another stunning view of the city. I stood awkwardly, unsure where to wait or what to do with myself. A photo on the desk caught my eye, the only personal touch in the room. A family portrait, a man and woman with 3 young boys, all dark-haired and solemn-faced. The oldest boy, perhaps 10, had eyes I recognized. My father, mother, and brothers, Dante said from the doorway, making me jump. I hadn't heard him approach. I'm sorry, I wasn't. It's there to be seen, he said, closing the door behind him. The sounds of the men in the other room were immediately silenced. Your family, I said, stating the obvious. Gone now. His expression revealed nothing, but his voice held centuries of pain. All of them. I'm sorry. He dismissed my sympathy with a slight shake of his head. How is your mother settling in? Well, I think it's amazing there. Dr. Moreno is the best. If anyone can help your mother, he can. Thank you, I said, the words inadequate for the hope he'd given me. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Work for me now. He cut me off. That's repayment enough. He moved to a cabinet, unlocked it with a key from his pocket, and removed a sleek laptop and a phone still in its box. These are yours. The laptop has everything you need to begin learning your duties. The phone is secure. Only I can reach you on it. He set them on the desk between us. Your personal phone stays here when you leave each day. You want my personal phone? I want no distractions when you're not here, and no security risks. The only people who need to reach you can do so through me. Control. This was about control. What about my apartment? My things already taken care of. Your lease has been paid out, and your belongings are being packed as we speak. They'll be delivered to your new residence tomorrow. My new residence. The ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet, the floor below this one. It's more convenient for your duties and significantly more secure than your current situation. Anger flared through my shock. You can't just. I can, and I have. His tone brooked no argument. Your safety is now my concern, Adriana. The work you'll be doing for me requires discretion and security. What kind of work requires that level of security? I demanded, finding courage in indignation. He studied me for a long moment, then gestured for me to sit. I remained standing. What do you know about me, Adriana? About what I do? You own the club, I said carefully. And other businesses, I assume. A smile touched his lips, almost sad, a diplomatic answer. Let me be more direct. You know who I am, what I am. Everyone in this city does, whether they speak it aloud or not. My heart raced. I've heard things, and yet you came here today. You accepted my offer. For my mother. Yes, for your mother. He stepped closer. I respect that loyalty. It's why you're here. But understand this, from this moment forward, that same loyalty belongs to me. My business, my secrets, my interests are now yours to protect. What exactly is your business, Dante? I asked, suddenly needing to hear him say it. His eyes never left mine. Power, protection, profit, in that order. Not a direct confession, but we both knew what he meant. Intelligence, espionage, information control, and if I've changed my mind, something dangerous flickered in his gaze. Have you? I thought of my mother in that beautiful facility, of the hope in Dr. Moreno's eyes, when he described the treatment plan of the mountain of debt, suddenly vanished. No, I admitted quietly. Good. He checked his watch, another understated display of wealth. We leave in an hour for dinner. Giovanni will show you to your temporary quarters where you can freshen up. There's a suitable dress waiting for you. Dinner. With who? With me, Adriana. That possessive note again, sending heat curling through my stomach. Tonight is about you learning who I am. Tomorrow, you learn what I do. As if summoned, the security man Giovanni apparently appeared at the door. One more thing, Dante said as I turned to leave. The men you met today, keep your distance from them, especially Leon. Why? His eyes darkened. Because they see you as a weakness of mine. And in our world, perceived weaknesses are exploited. I'm not your weakness, I said, confused. No, he agreed, his gaze traveling slowly over my face. You're not. But the way he looked at me made me wonder if I might become one. The suitable dress waiting for me was a black silk sheath that fit as if it had been made for me, which, I realized with a chill, it probably had been. Simple but elegant, with a price tag I was afraid to imagine. I stared at my reflection in the guest bathroom mirror, barely recognizing myself. My temporary quarters, as Dante had called them, were a spacious guest suite within his penthousing, other indication of how thoroughly he'd planned my I couldn't think of a gentler word for it, capture. Despite the luxury surrounding me, I felt the invisible bars. When I emerged, Dante was waiting in the living room, his back to me, as he looked out over the city. The setting sun cast him in silhouette, a dark figure against a burning sky. The dress fits well, he said without turning. I paused, unsettled. How did you, your reflection, he explained, nodding toward the window where, indeed, my image was faintly visible. He turned then, his eyes taking me in with a thoroughness that made my skin warm. Beautiful. The compliment hung between us, intimate and uncomfortable. I looked away first. Where are we going? Somewhere private, he answered, offering his arm. I dislike public attention. Giovanni and another security man whose name I learned was Marco escorted us down to a waiting car, a sleek black Mercedes with windows tinted so dark they seemed to absorb light. Marco drove while Giovanni sat in the front passenger seat, his posture alert despite the seemingly relaxed setting. Dante sat beside me in the back, close enough that I could feel the heat of him through his suit. He smelled of that same subtle cologne sandalwood, and something darker I couldn't name. You have questions, he said as we pulled into traffic. Not a question. I had hundreds, but settled on the most immediate. How did you know my dress size? A slight smile. I know many things about you, Adriana. Your dress size is among the least interesting. That didn't answer my question, but I moved on. How long have you been watching me? Since your second week at Obsidian. He said it casually, as if admitting to long-term surveillance was perfectly normal. You caught my attention when you handled the situation with a particularly difficult client. He'd had too much to drink, was becoming aggressive with one of the other waitresses. I remembered the incident. I spilled a drink on him, made it look like an accident. Yes, most would have called security, created a scene. You found a more elegant solution. The way you diffused his anger, apologized so sincerely, he ended up feeling like he'd somehow wronged you. It was artful. It was survival, I corrected. Women in service jobs learn these skills or they don't last. He considered this, nodding slowly. Even more impressive that it came naturally to you. The car turned onto a road leading out of the city, toward the coast. Soon the urban landscape gave way to more exclusive neighborhoods, gated estates set back from the road, hidden behind high walls and security systems. Where are we going? I asked again. My home. I thought the penthouse is one of my residences. Yes, but not my home. We drove through wrought iron gates that opened silently at our approach, then up a long winding driveway flanked by old-growth trees. When the house came into view, I couldn't contain a soft gasp. It was a modern fortress, glass and stone and sharp angles, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Lights glowed warmly from within, illuminating multiple levels and what appeared to be a sprawling terrace. The grounds around it were immaculate, with security features cleverly disguised among the landscaping. Marco pulled up to the front entrance where a middle-aged woman in a simple black dress waited. Giovanni exited first, scanning the area before opening Dante's door. The choreography was practiced, protective. Adriana. This is Mrs. Rossi, Dante said as we approached the woman. My mother's cousin. She oversees my household. The woman's eyes assessed me quickly, revealing nothing. Welcome, Miss Parker, she said, her accent similar to Dante's but heavier. Inside the house was a study in contrast, cold modernism softened by touches of old-world elegance. Art that belonged in museums hung casually on walls. Antique furniture sat alongside contemporary pieces. The overall effect was disorienting, like stepping between centuries. This has been in my family for 3 generations, Dante explained as we moved through the space, though I've made significant modifications. I could only imagine what kind of modifications a man like Dante Russo would make to a family estate. Security systems, certainly, perhaps escape routes, maybe even the kinds of rooms no one spoke about. Dinner was served in a dining room with a wall of glass overlooking the ocean. The table was set for 2 with fine china and crystal that caught the light from the chandelier above. Mrs. Rossi supervised 2 young men who served us silently some sort of fish I didn't recognize, prepared simply but exquisitely, paired with wine that probably cost more than my monthly rent. You're not eating, Dante observed after several minutes of silence. I forced myself to take a bite, though my appetite had fled. It's delicious, I said truthfully. But you're distracted. His perception was unnerving. Ask what you want to know, Adriana. Tonight is for honesty between us. I set down my fork. What do you want from me? He took a sip of wine, considering loyalty, discretion, intelligence, and nothing more. His eyes met mine, over the rim of his glass. Would it bother you if there were more? Heat crept into my cheeks. I'm not, that is. I know what you're not, Adriana, he said softly. You're not for sale, not in that way. I've made that clear from the beginning. Relief and something like disappointment mingled uncomfortably in my chest. Then why am I here? In your home, wearing clothes you provided, eating at your table. This feels very personal for a business arrangement. Because it is personal, he said simply. Everything I do is personal. I don't separate business from the rest of my life the way some men do. And what is your business exactly? I pressed, emboldened by the wine and his apparent openness. You own the club, but that's not all. No, he agreed. That's merely the most visible part. I have interests in shipping, communications, private security, and several other ventures. He paused, watching my reaction carefully. I control one of the most extensive intelligence networks in this hemisphere. Information is my currency, and I trade in secrets that move nations. The casual admission hung between us. You're a spy, I said quietly. A spy master, among other things. He leaned forward slightly. Does that trouble you? I thought about it honestly. I don't know yet. He seemed to appreciate the honesty. A fair answer. I don't expect blind allegiance, Adriana. I expect you to question, to think for yourself. That's why you're here. I thought I was here because you've been watching me for months and decided to. I struggled for the right word. Collect me. Something darkened in his expression. Is that how you see this? As a collection? What would you call it? For both of us? An opportunity. What opportunity do you get from this arrangement? You're already giving me everything: my mother's treatment, a new home, a salary I could never earn otherwise. What do you gain? He leaned forward slightly. Someone I can trust. You don't know me, I countered. I know you better than you might think. His voice lowered. I know you cry